Cancer is not caused by something.
Tell me more.
That's it. Yeah, you did exactly right. Cancer is not caused by something. It's caused by the lack of something. Well, that changes everything, doesn't it? I don't have to treat it at all. I just have to figure out what it's lacking in the body.
Welcome to the Deconstructing Conventional podcast. This interview is brought to you by Healing United, a private membership association committed to helping you reclaim sovereignty over your health, life, and future. You could say our tagline is question everything and rebuild intentionally. In the audio format of the show, there's additional commentary before each episode, and there are also over a dozen audio-only episodes. You can find the show anywhere you listen to podcasts, including the Healing United PMA app. Look for it in the App Store, and if you want to learn more about the work we do, and especially how we help people heal when the doctors have no answers, visit us online at healingunited.today. Now, on with the show. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a big honor that I have today. I have for you the legendary G. Edward Griffin. So let me just tell you a little bit about this amazing man. So he is an American author, a filmmaker, and lecturer. He began his career as a child voice actor on local radio. And after serving in the U.S. Army, he worked as a writer and announcer, later becoming a contributing editor to The New American, which is a magazine from the John Birch Society. He also wrote and directed the 1966 film Anarchy, USA. And more recently, he was featured in Mickey Willis's newest Plandemic documentary. Mr. Griffin also founded Freedom Force International in 2002, and he later created Red Pill University and the Red Pill Expo to organize citizens around individualist and anti-collectivist ideals. He currently publishes a regular Need to Know newsletter, which you can find at needtoknow.news. And by the way, that newsletter is on my short list of newsletters worth reading. It's very informative. Mr. Griffin is best known for his 1994 book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, in which he compellingly argues that the Federal Reserve System is a banking cartel. He is also the author of the book, World Without Cancer, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So, Mr. Griffin, thank you so much for joining me today. It's an honor to have you.
Well, thank you for that very kind and rapid introduction. It's been a long time since some of those topics that you mentioned were in my upper frontal lobes, so to speak. A lot of water has flown under the bridge, so shall we say. Yes, life has been long.
Well, it has been good and long. It felt like a disservice to cut things from your amazingly long bio, so I just tried to hit the highlights. But what
that was the humane thing to do, actually.
Right, yeah. Otherwise, we'd spend half an hour on his bio. So he's just been a force for freedom and understanding how the world works like no other I've known. And so it's been great to get to know you and your work. And so regarding your cancer book, so your first edition came out in 1974, which is actually 3 years after Nixon declared war on cancer. So I got to hear it once from you, but give the listener the story of how you came to write the book, World Without Cancer. What was the impetus behind it?
Okay, that does take us back to square one, doesn't it? That probably, I don't remember the date on that, but the book was published in 74. It was probably about probably about 1970 that I started to move in that direction. Let's face it, even today, I am probably the last person in the world to hang out his shingle as being an expert on almost anything, really, but certainly not a cancer of all things. I mean, you talked about my early career, so to speak. I was a bratty kid, playing on radio shows like The Lone Ranger, for example. Gee, Dad, here come the Indians or something, And it was a great play for me and all that, but I was going to make my career in Hollywood. I was going to become the great Cecil B. DeMilles of the century, and that was my plan. But unfortunately, it was also the plan of thousands and thousands of other very talented young people, most of whom were far more talented than I was. And we all converged on Hollywood at the same time. And by that time, I was married, I married the prettiest student nurse on the campus at the University of Michigan. And then all of a sudden, I found myself coming out of the Army after a couple of years there. And I'm married and I have one child in existence and the other one being formed as we were talking about it back then. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, I got to quit playing around. I have a family to support. And my life changed. I stopped being a boy, being a kid, having a good time, and suddenly realized, oh, I have responsibilities too. How did that happen? And
I know that feeling.
so I ran out of money and I ran out of time. So I decided to get a real job. Anyway, I don't know how I'm squeezing into all of this. The I'll fast forward. I'll spare you and the audience all of the other details of all the different things I went through. And I think the biggest lesson from that period of my life was that most people, I believe, go through the same thing. And that is that we don't know where we're going. We think we know where we're going. We have these plans, but something called fate comes along, and there are boulders that drop in front of us, and huge trees come crashing down across the road we're traveling, and all of a sudden we're in dead stop, and we can't go any further. And those are occasions in my life that at the moment that they happened, I considered to be great tragedies, great setbacks, horrible experiences, like having to change your life career plan, for example, and having to give up the childhood fun games and become a parent, the horrible things they have to face.
Right. I've lived that one a few times.
Horrible.
Yeah.
And then having to change your career and then having run out of money and then not being able to get a job because nobody has a great need for child actors, especially by this time when you're 22 years old, 23 years old, all of that stuff. But in retrospect, I realized that every time I came up against a brick wall or a cliff, as tragic as it seemed at the time, in retrospect, I could see it forced me to take a right angle turn or something close to a right angle and go in an entirely different direction just because of necessity to survive. And in retrospect, it turned out to be the best move I ever made. And I was forced into it. It wasn't part of my plan at all. And by the time I got to be, let's say, half of my age right now, which I'm 94. By the time I was in my mid 40s, I realized that this was a pattern that I almost was looking forward to. When is the next catastrophe going to happen? Because they always turn out well in the long run, because it forces this one anyway, to face reality and put the dream aside a little bit and see if you can't blend reality with the ideologies and the idealistic thoughts you have. So now back to your question, how did this all get started? My book on cancer. Believe it or not, there is a connection. So I found myself, well, I was surprised to find that I had a crusader gene in me, because up until this time, I really hadn't taken much interest in world affairs. I was like most young people. I was all wrapped up in myself, my own family. I wanted to be looking good. I wanted to have all the materialistic things, nicest car. I wanted a nice house. I wanted to be able to travel around the world. I wanted to have fun and look good and very materialistic. But all of a sudden, this crusader gene started to wrap. I was infuriated when I read this stuff, mostly coming from the people at the United Nations themselves. I realized this was a scam. The whole thing was a scam. They pretend one thing while they're doing something else. I thought, the world has to know about this.
Yeah.
So, Christian, I quit my job.
And so it begins, right? Yeah.
And so it began.
Yep.
And I wound up, you mentioned in your introduction, I had done some work. I affiliated with the John Birch Society in those days. Seemed to be the only organization out there that seemed to know about these things that I'm discovering on my own. And so I associated with them, and I became actually part of their staff for a little while until I decided to go off and save the world on my own. So, but when that short period where I was working with the other John Birch members around the country, they liked what I was doing, so they put me in charge of training a lot of the coordinators around the country and how to set up local groups and how to put in little American opinion bookstores in every community where people could get literature, unbiased literature on this stuff. So in that period of time, I ran into a very wonderful man. His name is Dr. John Richardson, MD. And he was a member, a very strong, staunch member. And we became friends. And I helped him build a chapter and a local American opinion bookstore in the San Francisco area. And that was our reason for knowing each other. It had nothing to do with healthcare. He was a doctor. I'm an organizer, or whatever you call me at that time. And all we talked about is the mission of getting the bookstore going and getting the word out. And one day, Dr. John and I used to sneak off sometimes on little excursions to get away from the city, get away from our usual stuff. And we said, well, we're going to go fishing or something like that. Well, we never went fishing. We just drove out, drove into some beautiful country. We were looking for real estate, actually, hoping to find a place out of the city. Not to go hide or anything like that, but just to get out of the humdrum of the city. And we never talked about anything other than political and social issues that bound us together. But this one time we did that, Dr. John brought his briefcase with him, which was different because we never did that. We leave the briefcase at home. He brought his briefcase. And so the moment came when he said, Ed, let's talk about something. I need your help. I said, John, you need my help? What? Well, what can I do? He said, well, I've been treating cancer patients. And for the first time, I've been treating them with a substance that for the first time is working. I've never seen anything work, really. It's always we're trying, we're researching. And sometimes we can extend the life a little bit, but the life that is extended is deteriorated and not worth extending. And he said, this is really working. He said, I'm saving lives. And the medical profession around me, the California Medical Association, wants to take away my license because I'm using an unapproved substance. He said, it makes no difference that it's saving lives. It's unapproved. My crusader gene started to rattle again. I said, what do you mean? Well, that's ridiculous.
Right.
And I said, what can I do? And he said, well, he said, I'm a doctor. I treat patients. You're a writer. You talk to people. You're a communicator. Can you help me write an article on what I'm trying to do in this substance that I'm using so I can get these jerks off my back and let me just go back to practicing medicine and not playing politics? I said, well, I'll do what I can, John. Sounds like an interesting project. So being totally uninformed about this, as I was, I thought, well, this sounds like maybe a 10-day project. Oh, that sounds like it'd be worthwhile. All right. And little did I know how much voltage was in those wires that I was about to grab hold of. And once I got into it and I started finding out what this substance was and the theory of how it worked and the history of it and all of that, I realized that this was really, it was several things. First of all, it was extremely interesting. And secondly, it was so far from anything I knew anything about that I thought, I'm not a doctor. My gosh, I have to go to medical school or something like this. And I wanted to bug off and say, well, you better get somebody else. But I didn't. And so that's how I got started. I suddenly realized that I had grabbed hold of something that I did not know existed. And by that, let me explain to your audience, what was the thing? Anybody can go to school, anybody can go to bookstores and buy medical books on cancer research, cancer therapy, the theories of cancer, the prognoses, the medications, the treatments, all of that stuff. And you can become very proficient doing what everybody else does, which is making money.
Mm.
I didn't realize that at the time, but if I had heard somebody say that to me in the beginning, I would have been about as outraged at that as I was at somebody criticizing the United Nations,
Mm.
because I knew that the medical profession was wonderful. I mean, these are all people who are trying to help humanity and help people restore their health and so forth. These are great people. They would never do anything for money above results, would they?
Eesh.
Well, I said, no, of course not. Well, jumping ahead, I found out that's exactly the problem. But I didn't know it at the time. So that's how I got started in it. And it turned out to be not a 10-day project, but it's a project that's still going on, actually, because I'm learning stuff all the time. But it took me about, I'm just going to guess, maybe about 3 years to get up to speed
Mm.
to the point where I could write on the topic with a little bit of confidence that I wouldn't be embarrassing myself. And it was a long and interesting journey. And thanks to Dr. Richardson and his staff, actually, his non-medical staff, I can't remember the chap's name, a very nice guy, loaded me up with literature on this. If it hadn't been for him, oh golly, I'll think of his name maybe as we go ahead. But a nice fellow, but he was the office manager. And he said, I'm glad you're getting into this. The story's got to be told. Yeah, okay, well, I'll do my best. And he was giving me all this literature that he had amassed of his own. Uh, Much of it was medical, but a lot of it was political.
Mm.
And I was rejecting all the political stuff. He was sending me stuff about Nazi Germany and
Really?
the
What does this have
German.
to do with cancer? Right.
What did that have to do with cancer?
Yeah.
And all about the cartels, the bad Germans and all that stuff. And this was, after World War II. Excuse me, after World War II. And everybody thought of that was all this work that he was giving to me. The story about this work occurred, a lot of it in the Nazi regime,
Mm.
and in that period when Nazism was dominant in Germany. So there was this spillover of the image between German means Nazi, right? Well, of course, that's ridiculous, but it didn't seem ridiculous at the time. And who wants to know about these nasty Nazis and all that nonsense? We're talking about cancer, man.
Yeah.
Let's stick with the topic. So I had to break through all that barrier. And Ralph was his first name. Ralph, maybe I'll come up with a second name yet. Bowman, Ralph
There we
Bowman.
go.
There we got it. Came up. Anyway, so Ralph was feeding me all of these books, not only medical books, but books on the history of the origin of the pharmaceutical industry,
Mm.
which happened in Nazi Germany.
Surprise.
And it began, I didn't know this, but I'm learning this against my will, because Ralph was dumping it on me all the time. And I'm saying, Ralph, I don't want this stuff. I want to stick with the medical. And he didn't pay any attention. He just kept
How
it
rude.
going. And I'm reading this stuff sort of on the sly. I think I don't want to spend a lot of time with this, but it was interesting. And I discovered that there was the first, I think it's probably the first cartel, really, in the way we think of it in the modern word, in the world, was in Germany prior to Nazi Germany, but developed during the regime. And it was called IG Farben.
Mm.
That's what its name was, and it stood for IG Farben. If I can remember now, I think that was IG was Interessengemeinschaft.
Mm.
I don't speak German. I just memorize those sounds. But Interessengemeinschaft, I was told, meant a community of interests.
Mm.
And it was a cartel.
Yeah, that's a better name than cartel.
Yeah. That was the origin of it. And IG Farben had developed into a monstrous thing in Nazi Germany. It included almost all of the major industry in Germany. And it was certainly not the free market or anything like that. It was collectivism under the name of Nazism, but it was collectivism, and that meant the combination of the state and private. There was no private enterprise. Everything would be owned and run by the state, but it would appear sort of like the Mussolini version, the fascist version. It'll appear like it was private companies, but
Hmm.
in reality, it was the private companies that were running the government, and
Yep.
they, yeah, it's what we have today in our world,
Right.
actually.
Yeah.
It was all
Monopolies.
developed in Nazi Germany and in Mussolini's Italy. And I didn't know any of that. Didn't want to know any of that.
Yeah.
But
Stay on topic already, right? Yeah.
Ralph is forcing me to learn about these things, and I'm going, "Wow, that's interesting. Can't be true."
Yeah.
And then I ran into a lot of literature, other literature about this cartel. Which I hope your audience finds this interesting. Um, it's one of those things I was talking about. Something you don't like, and it turns out to be the best thing for you.
Right.
I resisted this all the way, but then I found out that he was giving me a lot of books that were written by communists.
Hmm.
I said, Ralph, don't give me this garbage. He says, look, he says, "Look, when they're talking about politics, they're garbage. It's garbage. You and I know that. But when they're talking about I.G. Farben, which they consider to be the enemy, because they were the communists against the Nazis at that time. They wanted to discredit the Nazis. And so they were telling the truth about the cartel only
Hmm.
because they were the enemies. They believed the same thing, but they
Hmm.
were, it's just the old, why did the fascists and the communists fight each other? This wasn't because they believed in anything different. They believed in exactly the same thing, almost. They were fighting over territory and dominance.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that too. So all of these things I'm being forced to learn against my will. And it all started with Dr. John. Now that's so okay. That's how it all started. Believe it or not, I had to go through all of that. It's someplace I never intended to wind up. And as I said earlier, I was and probably still am the last person in the world who was qualified to tackle a topic as huge and hidden as that. But for some reason, it was dumped in my lap. And I like looking ahead when I was writing Creature from Jekyll Island, another example. I'm the last person. What do I know about banking? For God's sake. I mean,
Hmm.
I ran back with the Lone Ranger. That's where I should be. Me knowing about banking and discount ratios and central banking and all this stuff. Uh, I, I gave up a couple of times on World Without Cancer and also on The Creature from Jekyll Island because it was just too much for me. I
Hmm.
thought, I'm not the one for this. But when I stopped it, the Crusader genes started getting very loud. Said, "You got to finish this." So I kept going back to it, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I did. And
A lot of us are. Yes. You've
yeah,
taught humanity a tremendous amount. And the just the cancer book alone is over 500 pages. And I listened to your Creature from Jekyll Island. It was 24 hours long. It speaks to the depth at which you took those topics seriously to document what you found, to leave a real record for humanity, to say this is real and you can fact check me all you want, but this is how the world works. And applying what you learned about the cancer world, I can see how that helped set up Creature because you had learned that, oh, it's monopolists and people who think it's their right to run the world that are in control of almost every institution. That was my big wake up in 2020, 2021. It's like I knew the pharmaceutical world is as you described, but I didn't realize it was every industry. And then
yeah,
seeing the breadth, oh, they were thorough. They tried to capture every single aspect of society and commerce and spiritual traditions, and they
everything.
just used politics to divide us. I could, and tell your book was one of the things that cracked that shell to go, oh my gosh, they have been so systematic in taking everything owner. There was a line in your cancer book where you talked about how the Rockefellers used and they viewed education as just a way to make the populace docile and easy to manage. And well, if you think education doesn't also apply to medical education, then we've missed the plot here. Like it's the
Yeah,
same institution. What they're after is a sick need to control everything and form the world into their image. And they've just been at it so long and they figured out how to do it covertly and putting on a theater, as you've talked about, so where we can't see what's actually going on. But
Mm.
it's that's so that anyway, those are some of my high level takeaways. And for all the people that can't thank you for not giving up on those two books, the amount of the weightiness to me, your cancer book is still the definitive book on the topic, even though you fought the process of doing it the whole way. Like, what in the world do I have to study Nazi Germany for to understand cancer? Like, leave me
Yeah.
alone. I'm
Well,
trying.
yeah, there's a little sub story to that one too, because after I had written the manuscript for the
Mhm.
book, I decided that there were two stories.
Yeah.
There was the science of cancer therapy and the politics of cancer therapy.
Yeah.
And they were seemingly insulated. They were what's the no connection.
Hmm.
And I could see that there was a great connection, but I was advised by some of my closest friends, and some of whom were doctors, uh, to how do they phrase it? To put it aside.
Mm.
It's, they didn't want me to embarrass myself. They
Uh,
said, "You should, Ed, you should stick with what you know."
right. And you're like, and I know both of these things. And
Well, I thought I did, but
oh, you did?
these are people who, well, this time I'm just talking about, by cancer. And
Uh-huh.
stick with what you know, said these doctors. And anyway, so I almost put it aside, the politics.
Hmm.
But I was thinking the biggest obstacle to my getting this story across
Hmm.
to people who have no background at all is the impossibility to understand why their doctor doesn't know this.
Yeah. And really the second half of the book is answering that question. It's
That if you
right.
can't answer that question, then you lose.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll come back to that because there's your entree to, or your appetizer to get into this topic of cancer and why it's
Mhm.
such a sticky widget. The short version is there's been a lot of different things that have helped cancer over the years, and more or less they're all stamped out of existence because of what you'll read in part two of his book. But you make the point at the end of chapter five, just that the theory that you have unearthed that's been around since like 1902, I think it is, still has the most ability to answer the questions and to blend all the different known aspects of human physiology into one simple, coherent story of what cancer is and how the body approaches dealing with cancer and so on. So let's get in somewhat before we set the table with what today would be called an alternative view of cancer or an unconventional approach to cancer. Let's just set the table because you did a great job in your book of that as well, of defining what the medical view or the medical narrative is regarding cancer and how, in many ways, it just obfuscates and keeps us from learning what's rather simple about what cancer is. So, talk a little bit about what you learned about the conventional definition or perspective on cancer, and we'll use that to then compare to what we think cancer really is based on the rest of your book.
Mhm. Well, yeah, that is a good, you have to start with that,
Hmm.
but nobody starts with that.
Yep.
They always start with, okay, we got cancer. How do we fix it?
Right.
We
Therein
never
is the
asked
point, right? They don't
we
ever
never
bother
asked
to
about
say,
what
what
is
is it?
it?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you can't fix it if you don't know what it is. So
Yep.
that was the hardest thing to get over, is because even though I knew nothing about it, I did have the general image of whatever it is, the experts know about it, and they're doing the best anybody could possibly do,
Hmm.
because they spend 7 or 10 years studying it and then a lifetime of practicing it. How can somebody like myself come along and in a few months or maybe a couple of years say, oh well, this is all wrong and so forth. So, all right, what is the first thing I had to recognize is that there are two views on not only cancer but all ailments,
Hmm.
all. diseases. And the conventional view upon which our medical system is based is that there are nasty things out there, bugs,
Yep.
mostly bugs of
Hmm.
some kind. They have different names for them. They call them, you know, different names. I won't go to that long list of things. And you come in, if you dig deeply enough, you go all the way back to Louis Pasteur and Dr. Beauchamp and
Hmm.
the debate between the terrain theory and, you
Germ
know,
theory.
pardon?
And the germ theory.
And German, the terrain theory.
Yeah.
And of course, it's important. Let's just take a moment on that. The germ theory that Louis Pasteur was acclaimed for advocating, which he, by the way, rejected later on in life,
Yep.
but nobody knows about that, is that diseases are caused by germs,
Hmm.
nasty bugs of some kind.
Yep.
And Beauchamp said, well, not entirely. He said, the reason the germs are there is not because they're germs, because they're not germs. They're there in most cases just to help you,
Hmm.
but they're there to create a balance in your health. Almost everything exists with a plus and a minus, and you can't have left without right. You can't have up without down. You can't have illness without health, and so forth. So the germs are the one half of the picture, Beauchamp said. The other half is the terrain that the germs live in. And the two keep each other balanced. And as long as it's equal on both sides, you're in perfect health. That's what you're supposed to be.
Hmm.
And a lot of the things that we call germs and parasites are not harmful to us at all. Why is that? Because it's in balance with the terrain. And also, in many cases, those germs and even parasites are beneficial to us when they're in balance. As amazing it is, we got these little bugs. You get the microscope and you see little things that are in your eyelashes right now, and you blow them up. You look like huge monsters. Those are in my eyelashes now. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and they keep your eye liquid and everything.
Yeah.
Nice little guys. Those things are nice guys. No, okay. So I'm oversimplifying, but because this is how I approached it in those days, I had to think in terms of very simple analogies.
Hmm.
And I think that is the way to go about it. The things that we know about. And so the germ theory is that there are germs that cause diseases, end of discussion. So how do you cure diseases? You create chemicals or treatments that kill the germs.
Yep. Yeah. That's the model, right?
That's it.
Or it's genetic fatalism. It's just, you just
Well,
got
yeah, yeah.
these, whatever the genetic lottery gave you, it's really not your fault, but
Yeah, no joke.
you've been overcome by this thing. So we get to intervene, like you said,
Yeah.
chemically or some
And,
other.
and we got some chemicals that make you feel better while you die.
Yeah. Right.
And you won't feel so much pain. So, but in all cases, you got to buy these chemicals
Hmm.
from us because disease is germs, and you can't get rid of germs unless you have an anti-germ.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the story of medicine today. And who can challenge it? Well, a lot of people can challenge it, and that's how I would say that Dr. John Richardson and his friend Ralph Bowman were two very strong advocates of the terrain theory,
Mm.
even though we never used those words back in that day. I was not aware of that until later when I was researching it.
Yeah.
But that's what it was. So what's the terrain theory is that, well, what is the terrain? What is the opposite of the bugs? What keeps the bugs from getting out of control
Hmm.
and doing things they're not supposed to do? And that's the immune system,
Yeah.
basically. It's the immune system. And it's not only in us, it's out in the world around us too. There are things that we can inhale, things that come from nature, maybe things that come off of plants that fly through the air.
Hmm.
And some people have allergies against them because, who knows, I don't know. But in general, they're healthy. And so, okay, I'm taking too long on this as usual. Having discovered
Really?
that there are two views of this, I had to ask myself, well, which is the best or which one do I believe in?
Mm.
And I couldn't find any reason not to willingly and eagerly accept the terrain theory.
Yeah.
And so basically, what I had to face down is the fact that the medical profession, as it had captured my allegiance up until this time, was based on treating symptoms
Mm-hmm.
to make you feel better, and at the same time to kill the bugs,
Yeah.
to kill the bugs, and so that you don't feel the pain. That was the total objective. So, but mostly to kill the bugs
Yeah.
because there's money in that.
Right. Well,
There's
and
money in pain too, by the way. But
that's
so
a good point. Yeah.
as
It's a
long as
warfare
you treat
model,
the
really.
symptoms, if you
Yeah.
just treat the symptoms and never say, what else is going on here? What caused the symptoms? You wind up with the medical profession that we now have.
Mm-hmm.
So now, that's a long way of saying, what's my view of cancer? And not
Mm-hmm.
just my view, it's the view of a lot of very knowledgeable scientists, practitioners, and theorists.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people like that, and those were my mentors. There's a lot of literature on this, by the way, but it's not widely known, and it's hard to find in some cases. So I decided that the only correct way to treat any disease, cancer or any other disease, is to find out what is the cause of it. And usually it's toxicity of some kind that breaks down the immune system or overpowers the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
And quite often that toxicity is self-inflicted,
Yeah. No, you're
quite
right.
often.
Yeah.
I mean, we do get it from the air, and they're sprinkling into the skies and all that stuff. Now they're putting this stuff in the drinking water, all that stuff. We get it in the food, the glyphosates and all that stuff. We're getting toxic stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's destroying, and our immune system is in overload.
Yeah.
And so then the bugs come in, and we've got cancer, or we got whatever else, you name your disease. Now, that is a very profound but very simplistic, overly simplified description of the two types of views of what is cancer or what is any disease, primarily chronic diseases. Now, you can have a breakdown because you're too close to radiation or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and that destroys your immune system, and you wind up in the same place,
Yeah.
but it's got a little different genesis than in most diseases that we're talking about. So if the treatment of the disease has to include knowledge of what the disease is, then we have to look at cancer and say, well, what is the disease?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is this thing that's destroying the immune system and that allows the terrain to, or gets in the way of the terrain, keeping it in balance?
Yeah. Well, I think an important note to mention here is that the system doesn't bother with that question. That's to make sure we capture that. What it says is, yep, you're sick. Let's figure out how to treat it. It never steps back and says what created it, how would the body handle it, or what's really going on here. It just says, how do we attack that? That's why the germ theory in some ways won the day, because it puts us in the active, proactive. We can go to war with bugs. We can go to war with cancer. We can have this combat model with the body and how we're supposed to approach it. And so that's why the tools in this case related to cancer are more warfare tools. They're cutting on us. They're attacking and removing something. They're radiating, just like bombing things, essentially X-ray therapy.
Right. They're
Chemical,
destroyers.
right. It's going and it's attacking. And you did a great job in your book laying bare each of the three main ways or treatments, you will, what they'd call them, that the conventional model approaches dealing with cancer. Surgery and radiation were the first two, and then the third one was chemo, and it was so bad you gave it its own chapter to describe how awful it was. But give us, I guess, maybe the quick version of before we get to a better definition of cancer and what other ways we can think about it and work to heal from it. Give us first the way that the system what does surgery do? What does radiation do? And what does chemo do? So that we can have an eyes wide open, because there'll be people listening to this who do have cancer and who are not going to get anything remotely close to informed consent or an
Well,
honest answer about what those treatments do.
yeah, that is the next stage of development of this logic behind the therapies that we're going to be talking about. Um, yeah, what is the cause? Very seldom do you hear doctors talk about that.
Hmm.
Sometimes, but even so, it's not in terms of how to fix it. It's just, well, you've been working too hard or something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, well, yeah, that could be true,
Uh-huh.
but you can work very, very hard and still not get sick
Right.
if you understand the mechanism, because you start fortifying your body's nutrition to keep that terrain going there, you know?
Correct.
So you
Yeah.
can do things about it. And but so what is cancer? Um,
Or how does conventional medicine approach cancer?
yeah, yeah. Um,
When it comes to
the
surgery,
way I like to describe this, Christian, is it's kind of a startling thing to say, and I like things like that that startle people. Like, oh, you wake up now. Listen,
go for it.
are you awake? Right. Cancer is not caused by something.
Oh, tell me more, Mr. Griffin.
That's it. Yeah, you did exactly right. Cancer is not caused by something. It's caused by the lack of something.
Oh,
Oh, well, that changes everything, doesn't it?
yeah. So you're not
What's it
gonna,
lacking?
yeah, you're not gonna fix that with surgery then, are you?
Yeah, I don't have to treat it at all. I just have to figure out what it's lacking,
Yeah. Okay,
and
keep
the
going.
body will treat it. You
Yeah.
give it what it's lacking, and the body will treat it.
What an idea.
What an idea! Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the idea was that well, cancer or all diseases, scurvy is a good example. What caused scurvy in the beginning? Nobody knew what it caused. All they knew is that sailors on ships got it, and it was something to do with ships. And the theory was there was some kind of a mold or some kind of a ugly bug that lurked in the dark holds of ships down below the water level. It was always damp and dingy, no sunlight. And they figured there was a bug. And so there were a lot of attention scrubbing things and sanitizing things. Didn't make any difference. The bug was still there. And then we find out, well, when the sailors got on shore and they started eating fruits and things that had citric juice in them, why they didn't have scurvy anymore,
Mhm.
regardless of the dark holes in the ships. And so it took a long time to realize that it wasn't bugs in the dark holes of ships. It was the fact that the British started giving their sailors lemons.
Mhm.
And lemons last a pretty long time. They're sour. Nothing would dare attack them.
Right.
They last a lot. And you can suck on a lemon or slice it up a little bit. You don't get scurvy. And so we found out again that scurvy is not caused by something. It's caused by the lack of something.
Mhm.
And you have pernicious anemia and a lot of conditions that we know about. And it's a known phenomenon.
Mhm.
Diseases can be caused by the lack of something.
Yeah.
But when you suggest that cancer, for example, is caused by the lack of something in the diet, people get enraged. What do you mean a lack of something? It's not food. This is cancer, man. This
Mhm.
is really serious stuff. This isn't food related. They can't get it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a simple thing. It's a substance, I believe, and I think that science proves it. It's a substance that's found in about 1,400 edible plants. 1,400. They're all over the place. But modern man does not like the taste of it. It's very bitter. And so the more advanced society is and the more affluence there is and the more selectivity you have on foods that taste sweet and not bitter, you select against all the bitter foods. And all of a sudden, you have a society that's coming down with cancer. It's as simple as that. And you can look at, as I did in the book, look at some societies around the world, the Hunzakuts in northwest Pakistan, the Aboriginal Indians, American Indians, the Vilcabambos. I mean, there are places in the world where traditionally cancer is never seen or very, very seldom seen.
Mm-hmm.
And in every case, if you examine the native diet of those people, you find that they are eating foods that are very rich in a particular substance that may not be in the diet, and probably definitely is not in the diet of modern man living in the city.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually really relatively rural and basic societies where they eat whatever they can eat. And the best example that I could find was the Hunzakuts in live in Hunza,
Uh-huh.
a little dynasty up in the mountains, and very hard to get to. You take your life in your hands because you have to walk along cliffs and the swinging bridges over deep ravines. And Western man never got in there until fairly recently. But when they did for the first time, they said, "There's no cancer here. What is it? How come?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, wouldn't you know that in Hunza, the delicacy of all the foods there was apricot, and the real delicacy was the apricot seed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you've ever eaten an apricot seed, you know it is bitter as hell.
Yeah, which is not a palate we are grown up with around here. Yeah, we like our sugars. Yeah.
And the California apricots are even more bitter than the Hunza apricots, by the way. So the Hunzas, you could say, well, maybe they didn't notice it because it wasn't as bitter.
Mm-hmm.
But the bitter taste is from the substance that we're talking about, and the substance is known as amygdalin.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're talking. Now we're talking science.
Yep.
What is amygdalin? It's a molecule, and it's found in nature, and you're supposed to be eating it. That's why it's in 1,400 edible plants. The
Yep.
great creator, the great creator who designed the universe, did that for a reason, so that no matter where you live, you're going to find some plants that have this stuff in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's part of the terrain.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the terrain. You're supposed to cooperate with it and put it into your terrain so it can hold things
Yeah.
in in containment, so to
And
speak.
that's what your friend John was finding. He was using amygdalin, if I remember correctly. That was the substance he was giving to people with cancer, and he's having remarkable results with it.
Yes,
And they
yes.
were coming after him because that's not approved. You're not allowed to essentially use nutrition to help people heal from a serious disease that we have other tools that we have approved. Never mind there. Proven is its whole puzzle of like, and what does proven mean, doctor?
Yeah.
Yeah, do I have that memory correct? That's what he was using was amygdalin to help.
Amygdalin, yes,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Hmm.
That is the primary substance. It's not the only thing out there, by the
Hmm.
way. It's more complex than that. That's why I say this is an oversimplification.
Hmm.
But as far as I could tell, and what I researched, is that amygdalin was by far the most important of all of the substances
Hmm.
that that the terrain in your
Hmm.
body needs. You need it all actually to
Yeah,
keep your
right.
system. And a huge deficiency in any one of them could trigger cancer. But the one that is the most efficient in controlling cancer is called amygdalin.
Hmm.
And it's as I say, it's everywhere, but people don't eat it. There are a lot of clues, though. You read the book, so you know this, but your readers would find this interesting. One of the first clues before they even knew any of this was that in the Midwest here in the United States, there was always in the wintertime a problem with cows developing cancer,
Hmm.
especially of the mouth and around the mouth that would show up, and then it would be intestinal. But in the springtime, the cancers would go away. What is that all about, you know? And finally, somebody cracked the code. They said, oh, well, look, what do the cows do in the springtime that they don't do in the wintertime or can't do in the wintertime?
Hmm.
And the answer was clear. When the sun starts intensifying and the snow starts to melt, the first green grasses come up through the snow, and the cows start eating grass for the first time after 3 or 4 months. The grass, broad-bladed grass, is a rich source of amygdalin. So the seasons provided the cure,
Hmm.
and the cows didn't have to read any books to figure it out.
Their instinct. Yeah, right. Well, another fascinating aspect of your book was this was probably one of the most helpful things was not just saying cancer is a toxin or a deficiency disease, but actually explaining what's going on in the body. And to do that, you had to talk about how you actually defined cancer in a chapter. You said cancer is the unnatural, uncontrolled, unchecked growth of trophoblast cells, which opened up a whole new category for me to start thinking about the puzzle. So, with your, obviously you wrote this a while ago. So, with your best recollection, what first thing we need to do to explain that to people is to describe what a trophoblast cell is. So, give us a definition of that, or help us see what the body's actually doing, because cancer gets viewed as this tumor equals bad. If the body's processes that are under whatever it's doing to manage its physiology, it's doing the wrong thing. And so we have to intervene. And understanding what trophoblast cells are gives you a different frame to go, oh, wait a minute. Maybe what the body's doing is an intelligent response to something rather than something that we need to fight because the body has no clue what it's doing. And we haven't understood what these cells are and what their role is, or how the body protects itself from overgrowths like cancer. So, with that frame, give us a little background on trophoblast cells, if you would, and that part of your book, because to me it was so foundational to understanding what cancer is.
Yeah, that's really the scientific core of the
Hmm.
whole issue,
Okay.
understanding trophoblast. And it's not easy. At least it wasn't easy for me. And if I have any uh, good luck at all, it's being able to take something that's very complicated and explain it in a simplified way that's perhaps oversimplification, but all of a sudden at least makes sense.
Yeah, but
You
you're
understand the
brilliant at it.
basic matter.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, keep going.
And so if you forgive me to have a little leeway to do that, I'll
Yes.
oversimplify it and say that trophoblast is part of the constructive process of the human body where it causes cells to grow temporarily, part of a healing process
Hmm.
or the birth process itself,
Hmm.
creation of the embryo
Hmm.
and the creation of the umbilical cord. But going beyond that, the trophoblast is a form of a stem cell, and the stem cells have the programming inside them to become, well, certain stem cells called, if I can remember the word, it's, um, I can't remember the word.
Yeah, you called them total live cells, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'll think of it like I did with Ralph Bowman. Anyway, it's a certain type of a cell um, that causes healing.
Hmm.
If and Here comes this simplified explanation. If I scratch my skin there with my fingernails,
Hmm.
you can't see it, but I've just scraped off probably 30 or 40 cells of skin. Okay, I don't even feel it anymore. It's gone. It was there, now it's gone. But the body knows that it just lost 30 skin cells. And already I can hear the sirens going off in there and the whistles blowing. Machines are getting fired up. And the body's going to work to replace my skin cells,
Uh-huh.
which have been damaged or removed. It's a healing process
Hmm.
without which we would die. We would never replace any cells that got old or got damaged.
Hmm.
So it's part of the healing life process. Now, what happens when they, what does the body do about that? Well, the signals go off, and among other things, a little estrogen floods that area. Men have estrogen too. And it's not just for female purposes, but it's part of the healing process
Hmm.
and replacement of damaged tissue. It's part of life. It's part of being alive. It's good. But now the body sends this stuff out, not just the estrogen, but there are other things going on. And it's working away while we're sipping our mint julep. And the first thing you know, it's all healed and it stops. Well, I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows why or how it stops healing, but it's smart enough to do that.
Hmm.
Otherwise, if it didn't stop, it would just keep healing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And the first thing you know, we'd have a growth on our hand. This is the definition, as I see it, the simplified definition of cancer. It's the overgrowth of healing tissue that's been stimulated to heal because of some damage or age or some deficiency in the old tissue is now going into repair mode and is creating new tissue, but the whistle to stop the process doesn't get blown. And it just keeps healing and overhealing. And oh my gosh, I've got a little tumor there, or it's inside my body. It is a tumor of trophoblast cells,
Hmm.
which are commonly associated with the development of the embryo in pregnancy and the umbilical cord.
Hmm.
Pure, as I remember my own understanding of it, is pure trophoblast. And all these other cells in your hand or your foot or your ear or wherever else, they too are trophoblasts, but they're not as dynamic and not as powerful as an embryonic version of it. Which is
Hmm.
I just remember the diploid totipotent cells.
Right.
I knew
It's
I knew
amazing
I
that
know
you
that.
remember that. Yes,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
You see, you got to have a dictionary. But once you understand the principles, you can forget the words.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are diploid totipotent cells, which means diploid means it's got two ploids or two two groupings of all the DNA. And these in the early stages of pregnancy can become one cell, a diploid totipotent cell, can become any cell in the body. And this all goes on for, I don't know, a few weeks, a few months, I've forgotten the exact number. And then that stops and these cells become differentiated.
Hmm.
Now they can't become any cell. They start learning that they have to become a finger or a left hand finger or the finger just at the tip at the end. And as the embryo develops, it gets more and more localized. And it gets its instructions of where it has to finally settle down in the body and become skin, for example, on my right
Hmm.
hand and so forth. It's an amazing thing the way God created this thing. And this
Yeah.
was this was engineering that it just blows your mind. And so anyway, that's what we mean when we say, or they mean when they say, the scientists, that cancer is trophoblast. Dr. Ernst Krebs said that, and he was ridiculed for it. He was the originator of the Laetrile concept.
Hmm.
And he was ridiculed and condemned for being so stupid, pretending that he has knowledge he doesn't have, and so forth. And then, as you saw in my book, 40, 50 years later, a couple of the universities said, "Up, he was right. That's next. Let's nothing to see here. Let's move on to the next topic."
Yeah.
And now it's admitted that cancer is trophoblast. But what does that mean? People say, oh, trophoblast, it's crazy stuff. It just means, back to my oversimplified definition, which is that cancer is the overhealing process that went awry. It somehow didn't get the stopping whistle blow.
Hmm.
So it just continues. It's there to save your life.
Yeah.
It does save your life because it heals something, but then it overheals. Now, what is the thing? What's the whistle that says stop healing? Maybe it's amygdalin, but it's probably a combination of a lot of different things that are found in nature that all together add up to that whistle stop. You're healed now, buddy. Go out and play tennis and relax and have a good time. Don't go to the hospital. Stay away from doctors.
Right. Well, you didn't just have amygdalin or what it's called B17. There was actually four things I found in your book that talk about the backup systems or the way the body makes sure that when a healing process is finishing, it knows to stop doing those. And one of the most fascinating was your talk about pancreatic enzymes and how the pancreas makes enzymes and fascinating some of the physiology. So I'll connect a couple of dots for you guys. So the pancreas makes, among other things, makes hormones and enzymes, but it puts them into the digestive tract at the duodenum level or duodenum, depending on who taught you how to say that. But that's a little C valve that kind of connects the small intestine and the stomach. So right there is where the pancreas will put enzymes into the body, but you hardly ever hear about duodenum cancer. You don't, it's not a thing. And part of that is because the enzymes made by the pancreas, trypsin and amyloitrypsin in particular, are something that tell the cancer cell that the cells that are replicating for a healing process that it's time to be done. But it's also significant because if somebody has pancreatic cancer, that's a really hard one to overcome because
Yeah,
they don't
that's
get those enzymes aren't activated until they hit the duodenum. They don't actually, the pancreas doesn't get to benefit from its own product that it makes, if you will. So, and then that's also relevant, obviously, to diabetes.
well, yeah, that's very true, and that's the reason that all the practitioners who understand this,
Hmm.
who use not only Laetrile and amygdalin, but other therapies as well, they understand this more complicated side of
Hmm.
this process, and they let me see, where was I going with that? They oh that's what they always prescribe for their patients is a good source of trypsin and chymotrypsin,
Hmm.
pancreatic enzymes,
Right.
because those are the enzymes that strip away the coating around a cancer cell. The cancer cells actually have a coating, a protein coating around them.
Hmm.
And people say, well, how come the immune system, all your white blood cells, how come they don't attack cancer? It's a foreign element, isn't it? Well, they don't attack cancer because it's covered with a protein coating to protect it. And it's the enzyme that we're talking about that eats away that protein coating. And once that's dissolved, all of a sudden, whammo, now the white blood cells can get into the cancer cells. And away they go.
Yeah.
And again, it's part of that magic, that design, that engineering. These chemical reactions don't just happen at random.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful mechanism of nature if we just open our minds and start looking for what nature teaches us, you know?
Yeah. Well, another thing you mentioned when you were using your scratching the skin analogy is you mentioned that estrogen comes to the area. And another set of another enzyme that different parts of your body make, your liver, kidney, spleen, etc. They make an enzyme called glucuronidase, which deactivates estrogen when it comes in contact with it. And so until I read your book, I couldn't figure out why various, like there's different hormone therapies people take, and it'll decrease the risk of this type of cancer, but dramatically increase the propensity for other types of cancer. And I didn't understand the estrogen connection until you talked about how estrogen is kind of this base where anytime there's healing that needs to happen, estrogen comes in as part of the repair process. And when you start tinkering with the estrogen, you might shrink one gland that's overgrowing, but you shift the way the body now has access to estrogen or the body's healing processes, and you can increase it in other ways. But that simple enzyme that other parts of your body make is also part of how the cells that are replicating and doing the healing part, that's how they know they can be done. Because the enzyme will come in and basically keep the process from over healing, to use your words, or um, allowing the body to go in the malignancy stage where now the cells are replicating and the body can't control it anymore. So, anything you want to say more about the enzyme, either of those two, or the aspects of how tinkering with the endocrine system can also lead to cancer, and how a basic understanding of these functions is relevant to getting our arms around what cancer is?
Well, I think your summary of it is about all you can say.
Okay.
You've got to be careful on these things. You don't want to start getting too creative and figuring out a better way.
Mm-hmm.
The, my view, after looking at all these complexities, is that we will never really understand them in totality,
Mm-hmm.
but we must understand that they happen naturally and automatically by the body. The body knows, but we don't know.
Yeah, it does.
And and so if we just concentrate on what is natural and make sure the body has the ingredients, the raw ingredients, and make sure it doesn't come out of a test tube.
Yes.
That's the other side.
Yeah.
Because if it does come out of a test tube, I'm going to say that the chances are 99% or more that it's going to be toxic and be counterproductive.
Hmm.
So we've got to find those things from nature. They're there.
Hmm.
They're all over the place if we just know what to look for. And if we maybe diversify and say, well, Lord, I don't know what I'm supposed to be eating, but I want a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and let your instinct take over.
Yeah.
Instinct, I think, is important.
It is.
It was fascinating for me to learn that some researchers had actually put apricots into the hands of apes at the zoo in San Diego,
Huh.
and to see what they we were talking about instinct, okay?
Yeah.
And somebody said that the monkeys and the apes have an instinct to eat apricot seeds.
Huh.
Oh, so somebody, I've forgotten this professor's name, he went to San Diego Zoo with apricots, and he got permission of the zookeepers. The big old gorilla sitting there. He was born in the zoo, and he's never been in the jungle. He doesn't know anything about apricots. Never saw one before, and they gave him a little bowl of apricots.
Hmm.
And the story is just you know what's coming. The gorilla looks at it, sniffs it, picks it up, looks at it, sniffs it again, takes a little bite, spits out the sweet stuff, peels it away. He's got the seed, cracks the seed open with his jaws, breaks it apart, and eats the apricot seed.
Yeah. Like, we just know. It's so cool that,
what more do you need to know?
yeah.
Stop trying to outthink the engineering. Just do
Yeah.
what's natural.
Well, and on that note, the way that you reframed tumors was fascinating because the medical world is tumor is bad. We got to get rid of that thing. And you said that a benign tumor is a monument to the body's victory over cancer. Like it's the body's, it will use, you talk about it more in depth, these enzymes, and it will start, the healthy cells will procreate and basically build a fortress around cells that might go rogue or that it can't stop. And so that's your cysts and your polyps and your tumors. They are, when they're just benign, they're sitting there because the body has already figured out, okay, well, this is my other
Yeah.
backup system that I have.
Yeah, they're already gone, basically.
Yeah.
They're no longer a threat,
Yeah.
and they just have to take some time to get absorbed and carried away. But it might take years.
Yeah.
But they're not going to harm you anymore. Yeah, you're right. They're monuments of success.
Yeah. Well, that was your
No,
word.
if they're actively growing, they're not monuments anymore.
No.
Now they're the enemy. Yeah.
Right. But it just gave me, it was fun to get more context on, oh, this is what the body's doing and how do I assist it? I have a deficiency, I have a toxicity, I have a possibly an intervention that if you're tinkering too much with the endocrine system, I can actually wreck the body's ability to balance its own hormones and create a different problem while I'm trying to solve one problem,
Right.
which is really that medical model. The other one that was, I thought we could talk chemo, radiation, and surgery, but your main point about surgery was it can actually spread the cancer because you can't cut into biological tissue without overriding this and having fluid exchange through chambers. So that is there anything else you want to say just in contrasting what we're talking about with trusting the body with the outcomes that are predictable or what the medical world will offer in terms of the three treatments so people can have kind of more of a balanced or holistic view of here's what my options are so they can evaluate what these worlds do. And we can obviously point them to your book, but any sort of cliff notes you want to give them on here's
Well,
what those therapies are going to offer you and why you might want to ask better questions or ask different questions.
right. Well, yeah, your caution is well advised because you don't want to give advice.
Hmm.
I mean, even if I were a medical doctor and
Hmm.
could legally give advice, I would probably not want to do it. I would rather,
Fair point. Yeah.
because you could be wrong, you know?
Yeah.
No system, we don't understand them 100%.
Uh-huh.
But I do lean heavily on statistics.
Hmm.
Statistics seem to be well engineered and so forth. And I would say that most practitioners who use these products that we're talking about will say something like, well, if it were me,
Hmm.
this is what I would do.
Yeah.
And because if you make a recommendation, you could say, well, this is my opinion, but to make a recommendation puts you right in the saddle, you know? And if it doesn't work, and it doesn't always work, I
Hmm.
mean, I can say with all honesty and sincerity that from the massive statistics I have seen going from doctor to doctor to doctor who use these products and knowing about their practice
Hmm.
and my wife is an RN, and she co-authored a book with Dr. Richardson later on lateral case histories and so forth. And she's knee deep and chin deep in all these research papers and the doctor's reports and so forth. Having looked at all that data and knowing that it was genuine data, I have no hesitancy to say that the odds are strongly in favor of doing exactly that. Is that, you know, I'm not going to recommend that you not do what your doctor tells you to do and do
Uh-huh.
what I do or would do, but I would just say the statistics, I believe, are valid, that the odds are very good.
Hmm.
And that's where it falls on the patient. This is the patient unfortunately wants to say, well, I want you to tell me what to do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Um, they want the doctor to tell them what to do. And unfortunately, I think too many doctors are eager to do that, mainly because even the doctors, I shouldn't say even the doctors, especially the doctors, are harder to understand. It's harder for them to understand this because they've already gone through 10 years or so of, of training
Yep.
and indoctrination of a certain viewpoint.
Yep.
And it's almost impossible to get rid of that. And I used to complain in those days about how difficult it was for a complete ignoramus like myself to understand these things we're talking about.
Hmm.
But Dr. John and others have said to me, Ed, you don't realize how lucky you are. I
Hmm.
said, what do you mean lucky? They said, you don't have to unlearn anything.
Right.
And that too is a major part of this story.
Yeah, it is. It's
Now, for example, talking about the apricot seeds
hmm
and what's the amygdalin,
hmm
the Orthodox community says, you don't want to take those seeds. Do you know what's in there?
arsenic.
Cyanide.
Cyanide. Sorry, had the wrong
Cyanide,
one.
yeah.
Yes, cyanide. I meant to
So,
say yes.
right. Those things are loaded with cyanide. You know, can kill you.
Yep.
And you're paying somebody and they're giving you cyanide. Are you crazy, man? And most cancer patients, if that's all they hear and all they know, they're going to say, really? Is it true? And it is true.
Yeah.
Oh, oh. And they go running out the door, you know. What they don't understand, well, one of the many things they don't understand, and one of the many things I didn't understand in the beginning, is that no, there is no cyanide in these uh, seeds. There's something called a cyanide compound, but cyanide is a gas. There's no gas in the seeds. Okay, well, what is in the seed? Well, it's a compound that includes the capacity to release gas if it's mixed with certain things, and it's found in nature, and it's not dangerous. And in fact, if you look at the bottle of a vitamin B12 bottle of tablets and look at the ingredients, it'll say cyanocobalamin. It has cyanide in it. Vitamin B12, one of the building blocks is cyanide. That doesn't mean it is or contains cyanide. It just means it was built out of cyanide. And okay, but and these people that go around saying, "Oh, you don't want to do that. It's got cyanide in it." Most of them know that what they're doing is not fair.
Hmm.
They know they're trying to trick people to scare them away from taking a closer look at these natural therapies. It's part of the defense mechanism of the pharmaceutical industry, is so that people do not know the truth.
Yeah. No, well, you made a point in the book too about cyanide in particular that it's the same with chlorine gas. If you breathe that in, not good, but if you put chlorine with sodium, you've got salt. Like you've
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Exactly.
it's what
Good,
it
good
interacts
analogy.
with. It's
Yeah.
not that it's that system has gotten really good at using fear to
Hmm.
talk people into and out of things that essentially I hate to say it, just lines their pockets. That really is the system is functioning as it was designed to, and that is to make money, not necessarily if that happens to help you, great. But that's really a theme you picked up on. Let's kind of talk about the second half of your book because that obviously we don't have time to cover all that, but a few things that you said really jumped out to me that I hadn't pieced together before. It was I mean, you went back as far talking about John Rockefeller's dad and where the American Medical Association started, and you got into obviously IG Farben, Nazi Germany, and just how monopolists think and how they captured institutions so you couldn't work without their approval. But one thing you pointed out was that in 1913, not only did we get the Federal Reserve and the IRS, but that same year we also got the tax exempt foundations, which allowed these monopolists to kind of do fake philanthropy to pretend they were helping and give large sums of money and be exempt from any sort of profit they could get from it. And it just centralized and sucked up more of basically of human resources. And it's the same year that we got the American Cancer Society, which I guess has a track record of 113 years of abysmal failure because we haven't done anything to improve that. But so those are some of just my high level takeaways from the second half of the book, all about that. But is there anything you want to say or Cliff Notes versions, things to nudge people to go really understand this history so we can be eyes wide open about what the system is? What would you say about what kind of became the impetus you had to say, I have to answer this question. Why doesn't my doctor know about alternative methods of helping cancer? What else would you want the listener to know about that half of the book?
Well, I think that's really it. I think it's important to know that your doctor is not a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's a victim as well as we are. In fact, statistically, doctors have more cancer and die more higher morbidity rate than non-doctors.
Yeah.
So that should be a clue as to which direction you want to go when you have cancer.
Yeah.
You want to go toward a doctor or away from it. Now, of course, that's an oversimplification. It's not fair because there are a lot of doctors, a lot of them increasingly now, who who understand this,
Hmm.
and especially since this theater called COVID,
Hmm.
um, it was so obvious now to millions of people that they cannot trust their authorities in the field of medicine anymore.
Hmm.
And I think they realized that it didn't work. It caused a lot of death and still is and still will, a humongous amount of death and suffering. And that's a lesson that's not going to go away. But it takes things like that, I suppose, for the average person to get it. And unfortunately, I know a lot of doctors, and I know that there are a lot of them are still in handcuffs, so to speak. They have to do what they're told now,
Yeah.
or they lose their license.
Yep.
If they didn't prescribe stuff as required,
Yeah.
not
Because
not
it's
their choice,
standard. Yeah.
not their choice. They're told what they have to prescribe,
Hmm.
and if they don't do that, they will lose their license, they lose their practice, they lose their livelihood,
Hmm.
their whole life of training, and most of them are making good money, but all of a sudden the income stops and they've got to get a job writing books or something.
Yeah. Which I can say from talking to you is an admirable profession. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
the fallback.
Yeah, no, it really is. Well, I thank you on behalf of everyone that will hear this or has been impacted by your work and your books. And the fact that you're still in the fight just means so much to so many of us. I got to, obviously, you had the pleasure of spending a couple of days with you and just hearing parts of your life story and what makes you tick and why you will always have a hill to take and there's always another book to write and another battle that's worth fighting and helping humanity with whatever meager tools and words we have to try to nudge us forward. I just am so inspired by who you are and by what you do and the way that you do it with kindness and grace and just you're hard to trick. And I love that about you because you see through the
Well,
matrix so
the
well.
only reason
So
I'm hard to trick is because I've been tricked so many times.
good to know. Okay, so I probably got a few more coming before, several more
Yeah.
coming before I
Yeah.
get
Well,
close.
thank you for that. I appreciate it, but I just do what I have to do. It's my crusader gene, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just hope we get a lot of people that listen to their crusader gene because we need an army of rebellion, an
Hmm.
army of resistance,
Yeah.
an army of truth tellers, and who are willing to stand up and take the abuse because we're up against a very highly organized and very well funded,
Hmm.
very powerful opposition,
Yep.
and they don't like what we're doing.
No, they don't.
So get ready
Well,
for the fight.
yeah. Well, I'm all in and I'm
Yeah.
happy to stand shoulder to shoulder. And I don't feel worthy to carry your gym bag around, but I'll do it anytime you let me. So,
Well, let me
t-
put in a little plug. If this
yeah,
program,
go for it. I want people
podcast,
to hear where to find you.
well, we have an event coming up, and it's part of this process I'm describing of what we do about it. And it's called the Red Pill Expo,
Hmm.
and we have one and sometimes two of those a year, and we bring in top speakers on various aspects of the red pill concept, which is reality over illusion, and we bring the best speakers together that we can, and we have the next one coming up in Las Vegas on July 11th and 12th. And if I urge people, if you possibly can come to come, but it's going to be online also if you can't make it to Las Vegas, and it's free. You don't, you could send a donation if you wanted to, but no, it's open to the world free, and it's 2 days. So check it out. And if you can come, you're going to meet other people
Yeah.
with similar mind, similar view, and you might even walk away becoming part of a movement to make things better in this world. That's what the whole plan is to organize people and to create a movement, not just to understand, but to fight back.
Yeah. No, that's and understanding is kind of the precursor to effectively fighting. And I'm so glad that you put those together so we can, it's hard to, when you have a map of reality that doesn't work, when, if you're trying to operate from bad information, you can't be very effective when you do go to move. And that your foundation or your effort that you're putting out to teach us and then organize us is so needed. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing
It's
that.
Well, thank you for your interest in that. So I welcome you. And I wish we had a lot more guys like you out there, but maybe we do. We just haven't found
Yeah,
them.
right.
We
I
just,
wasn't really awakened in the fight till after COVID kicked off. I'm like, wait a minute, I do not understand something fundamental because I can't explain all this. So it took me a while, but I'm present and accounted for. And if you're listening to this,
yeah.
we could certainly use your help. So give people some websites or places they can find you. Give them a copy to.
Well, the Red Pill Expo is a good place to begin. We have a weekly, a multiple, 3 times a week news service that's also free.
Mhm.
So I urge you to look that up and sign up for it. It's
Okay.
called needtoknow.news. Needtoknow.news. And you'll see what we think about what's going on in the world in many other areas, similar to the cancer story.
Mhm.
We find this fraud and these lies, these red pills need to be taken all over the place.
Yeah.
It's not just in healthcare, it's in politics, it's in wars,
Hmm.
it's in money,
Yep.
it's even in religion in
Yeah.
some places,
Unfortunately, that's true.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's everywhere you look. Anything, the more important place there is, more important the topic is, you'll find that these people we're talking about have been working on it for over 100 years, well
Hmm.
over that.
Yeah.
Heck, I'm almost 100 years old, and this was well underway when I was born.
Yep.
And so we have a lot of work to do,
Yep.
but it can be done, and it's up to us.
Yeah.
We are the ones we've been waiting for.
Yep, that's why we're talking. So, one last
Yeah.
thing I'll say is give people a plug for getting a physical copy of your, at least your cancer book, but any of them really, because that, to me, even researching for this episode was hard without a physical copy. So, let
Mhm.
people know the importance of getting a real book.
Yeah, well, I think needtoknow.news is a good place to begin.
Hmm.
That's our our website,
Okay.
our news service.
Okay.
And realityzone.com is a bookstore, an online bookstore, and have all of my books. And fortunately, a lot of others also. We have over 100 excellent books and videos that people can access. Oh, yeah, there it is, Reality Zone. And boy, that'd be enough to make your jaw drop all day long for a long time,
Yes.
those items. And and then there's redpilluniversity.org, which is where we start building the momentum, the organization
Yep.
to take back control of our lives.
Yeah.
And so we have plenty to do. And once you get interested, you can, it's like a smorgasbord. Where do you start?
For
Yeah,
sure. There's so many angles. We just need your, like, I love the point you make at the top of that website, actually. It's like you said, um, once the bell is rung, cannot be unrung. Once you take the red pill, the illusion can't be restored. Once you enter the reality zone, you can never return to the twilight zone. That
that's
pretty much
true.
sums it up. Yeah, that's,
That sums it up.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, so be
whatever way you
careful.
get in, just get here. And whatever your angle or your industry or your profession, something that um,
Yeah.
gives you an angle. I'm in the health and freedom lane like you, and it's such a, it's like the top of my list of dream interviews. And here I am talking to the legend and who's done so much, and I'm doing my best to keep the torch going. So
Okay. Well,
thank you
we'll
so
see you
much
at
for
the
your time
expo.
today.
Maybe you can make it out to the expo.
If I can make it, I will be there
Yeah,
for sure.
please do. Yeah, and bring
All
your
right.
friends. I
Yeah.
mean, it's free. Well, to go to the event, it costs you a few bucks, but it's very cheap.
Yep.
That's uh, that's our intent is not to make money on this thing, although you got to make money to pay for it.
Yep.
But no, we want people to see it, so we have no price. And if you get a little loose change in your pocket and you want to donate something, that's fine. But get the word out is the main thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, well, Christian, thank you for what you're doing, and thanks for inviting me on the show. And please send me a copy of this. I want to listen to it and find out all the mistakes I made. And
Me too. Let's see if we can. I said cyanide instead of whatever. So
okay,
here
all
we go.
right,
All right.
thank you, my friend. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Deconstructing Conventional. If this conversation sparked new questions or helped you see things in a new light, feel free to share it with a friend who is on a similar journey. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode and a perspective that challenges the norm. Check us out on our website at healingunited.today and find us on social media at Healing United, or you can check out the Healing United PMA app. It's a great way to stay connected. Remember, question everything and rebuild intentionally.